my kits, you will find a bag of grout in the kit, and I have included black grout, and I will explain to you why. So this is really important, the grout colour. Okay, now, the best way to explain grout colour to you is that black and dark greys are the colours that, the colour grout that pulls everything together. So for some reason, our brains push black to the background, which means that all the other colours come forward and then get pushed together. So if you have a pattern, or if you have something where, like this one, where I have a wing and I have something that I want to pull together to make it a cohesive design, you would go grey and black. Now, having said that, black will make this look really vibrant. It's going to make the colours look very vibrant. If I use a grey, it's going to tone it back down again. So it's going to make it look a little bit calmer. So it depends what you want your piece to look like. So if you've made a piece and you've used primarily pastels and you don't want it to have any harsh black in it and you want it to stay quite subdued when you look at it and calming, then use the grey grout. Okay, but most of the colours that I sent you out in your kits, if you do have a kit, were very vibrant, so I've included black grout. So in this case, I'm going to choose black grout for my duck. Now, other choices. So you can choose white grout. Now, this is a mosaic that my little daughter made when she was in infant school. She stuck down all the pieces and I stuck down all the white around it, and I decided to grout it white. Now, what white does is it separates colours. So it basically is like getting a highlighting texture and going around each one so that each individual piece stands alone. And there is a good reason to do that. So in this case, all of the pictures are contained on an individual tile that isn't broken up. So we can see there's no breaks in that. So there's no necessity to try and pull that picture together because the pictures are already together. So I could grout this any color I wanted and it wouldn't interfere with these pictures looking like what they're meant to be. So these ones are actually handmade tiles that it's another class, another day. But it works the same with anything. So we'll have a look at some examples, some more examples. This is a really good book if you can get your hands on it. I don't know if it's still in print or not, but it is pretty good. And there is a section in here that looks at grout. So it shows you the same piece grouted in different colors. So this is one that's been grouted in white, but this is exactly the same piece that's been grouted in black. Now, I don't know if you can quite see that on the screen, so I'm going to put in a close-up for you. There's other examples. This is another good one because it has examples of white and grey. So there's your white, and there's your black, and here's your grey, and you can really see the difference it makes. So this one looks like it's just one comprehensive piece. This one looks like a comprehensive piece, but it's not as bright as that one. And this one, all the pieces look completely separate. This effect is the effect that you'll get if you use color grout as well. Color grout, so anything other than grey and black. So if you decide to use a yellow or a red or mix up your own, which you can do by adding acrylic paint to it, it'll have this effect. So grout color is really important. But having said that, you don't have to grout at all. Grout doesn't add any structural strength to your mosaic. So for example, if you decide to grout a chair, it doesn't make the chair stronger if you mosaic it and then grout it. The chair is still going to be wobbly. It has to be structurally sound to start with. So if you're going to mosaic that chair and it wobbles, you have to fix it first. So a similar thing goes with mosaics that are on display. So if you like what you made exactly as it looks, you don't have to grout it. Okay, there are lots of artists who never touch grout, and depending on the materials, grout sometimes adds nothing. It actually drowns the materials, and we don't like it. So if you have used the mixed media that came in the family kit, you can't grout anyway, because those materials won't stand up to being grouted at all. So the decision has been made for you. But if you've used ceramic tiles and nuggets and things that can be grouted, you can make up your mind. So this one's ungrouted, this one's grouted. We can see the difference there. Another multicolored ungrouted one, so you can see the difference again. So this is both ungrouted, grouted. But it's a decision. You don't have to grout. So once you've made up your mind whether you're going to grout or not, you can continue on watching this segment, and I'm going to show you how to do your grouting. You might want to watch it anyway, just in case you make another piece in the future that you decide that you'd like to grout. So let's get on with it. Okay, you've done it. It's wonderful. You've made your first mosaic, but you still have another decision. You have to decide whether you want to grout it or not. So what is grout? Well, grout is essentially cement. It's fine cement with a coloured oxide in it. You have encountered grout in your homes between all the tiles that are probably in your kitchen and your bathroom and your laundry. It's no different with mosaics. There's no such thing as special mosaic grout. All grout is grout. And you want to have everything you need available when you start, because once you put your hands in the mosaic, in the grout, everything will have grout on it. So you want everything in front of you. So let's have a look. So if you got a kit, you would have your grout, a pair of gloves, absolutely essential. Back to our safety precautions, absolutely essential. No grouting without gloves. You'll have your sponge in the kit as well, and you've got some safety goggles. Not a bad idea to put these on when you're working, just in case any of the grout splashes up into your face. Hopefully that won't happen. Other things that you are going to need, of course, is the mosaic that you're going to grout. Now, that's what's in the kit, but there are other things that you need to have that aren't in the kit, that you need to just go and find yourself, and that includes a container to stir up the grout in. Now, I recommend that you use a container that you have no attachment to and do not wish to keep, because the best way to deal with this when we're finished is to simply throw the container with the excess grout away. I'll talk more about cleanup later. You need something to stir the grout with, to mix it up. This is an old wooden spoon. You can see I've well and truly used this to death. Having said that though, once you use a wooden spoon, can't go back to the kitchen. This is permanently stained, and that's something to note. You can use any piece of wood, just an offcut, anything you like, but whatever you put in here that's wooden is going to be permanently stained. So you might want to, I just keep this aside as my grout stirrer for black. If you use a metal spoon, the grout will come off the metal. So that's what you need for mixing. You need a bucket with water in it and something that you can scoop the water out to add slowly to the mix. You don't want to be putting a lot of water in all at once, and I'll show you why soon. Okay, now your tabletop and your floor. If this mixed grout gets onto the surfaces of your table and the floor, the oxide in the grout will stain. So I suggest that you get a couple of things. So to protect your clothing an apron. This one also very well used. I also suggest you get something like a tarp to put over the table, and if you need to protect the floor, potentially one under the table, but it has to come out past where you're standing, so if anything falls on the floor or you get it in your feet, it actually stays on the tarp. I would be doing that. If you don't have a tarp, you could put thicknesses of newspaper down, will probably do the job, but it really ideally needs to be something plastic. So you could also use plastic tablecloths, that will do it. But whatever you're going to use, like I keep saying, it's going to get stained, so don't use anything that you really want to keep. For something this small, we're not going to be using grouting tools. It's not necessary. You can use your gloved hand to do the exercise, but I just thought I would show you what grouting tools are available, just in case you decide to do a bigger piece, because if you are going to do a bigger piece, I do recommend you get some grouting tools. So let's have a look. This is a grouting tool here, and this one is used this way. That's one grouting tool. Or it's made by DTA. You can get one from me. You can go to the hardware store for that. That can be a useful tool. This is another grouting tool. Okay, you could possibly use that. And this is one that you can only get from me, I think. It's a mini grouter. So it basically does the same job as this one, but it's very tiny and it's very good for getting into grouting mosaics where there's a lot of height differences, and this won't work. Again, don't need these for today's exercise. I just thought I'd show you just so you know what's available. Okay, so let's start by mixing up our grout. So I've given you a bag of grout. So my suggestion is that you put nearly all of it, but just leave a little bit aside just in case you end up putting too much water in there. You could use a smaller container than what I've got because it's not a lot of grout. Something little will do. A takeaway container, a little yogurt container, anything like that. So I'm going to put nearly all of it in, and I'm leaving some spare. So now what I have to do is I'm going to add water to this, but very little bit at a time. Now, the grout goes from being powder form to way too runny very quickly, so you have to be very patient with this. So a little bit, and give it a stir. Let's see what it's doing. Okay, just a bit. All right. Then we're going to add a little bit more. But like I said, a little bit at a time. Now what we're aiming for here is toothpaste consistency. So we can see that coming together now. Okay. You probably should make up the whole lot. It's just that I like to leave a little aside. A little bit more water. We can still see what's going on in here. You can see exactly what I'm seeing here. Get right into the corners there. Make sure that you've got all the grout mixed in. It tends to sit in the corners and stay dry there. So just get in there. If necessary, use the back of your... Just get it out of there. There we go. A bit of a mix. Now that's still too solid. Like it's still too stiff. So let's add a little bit more water to it. Now this is the danger zone because now I'll probably add too much, but we'll try not to. And yeah, that was just a little bit too much, but that's okay. That's why we kept aside the little bit in the bag, so that when I put in too much, I have a little bit more than I can add. Now as you can see, I'm getting grout on everything now, so again, don't use anything you like. Alright, here we go. Let's just added that little bit more. And there should be plenty in this bag to grout the mosaic. That's 15 by 15 centimeters, which is basically the shape that you have with your kit. Okay. Now what you can do, if you get to this point and you're too scared to use, like pour water in because you think it'll come too fast, use a mister, a little spray mister, and you can just put it in mist at a time. Little tiny bit more. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, very small amount there. Talking little dribbles. Here we go. Now we get into perfect. So toothpaste consistency. Now we're aiming for something that is going to be easy to work with in terms of getting it into the cracks and things, but not so runny that it runs straight back out again. We need it to actually stay put. So this is what we have got. Now I don't know because if it's very easy to see. So it's not runny, but it's also not really stiff. Okay, so let's grout our mosaic. So now you can already see that my gloves are really quite gross and dirty. That's okay. Now, before we move on, you should give this a rinse in the bucket of water that you've got. It doesn't matter if that water starts turning black. It doesn't make any difference. But if you don't, the cement will set on this spoon, and then it may make it unusable if there's big chunks of grout all over it. The oxide colour is going to stay, so you're not trying to clean that off. You're just trying to get the huge chunks of grout off it so that it's usable for next time if you are going to reuse the spoon. So that's one off into the water. So let's grab our mosaic. Now, the first thing I like to do is to turn it over and give it a bit of a tap. Make sure everything's stuck. And if there's any little bits and pieces stuck in there that are going to come out, they'll come out when I give it a tap. So we're going to put this on the surface here. Now what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to get this grout into all of these cracks, in all of these spaces in between all the tiles. And then I'll show you how to get it into all of these ones here. Okay, so let's start. Now, we're going to be using our hands, so you just need to be mindful that there might be little sharp bits here. So when you first go over it, you need to go over it lightly just to locate anything that's a bit sharp that you need to be aware of. So just check where any of your sharp bits are. I think that might be a bit of a sharp bit for me, just so that you know where they are so that you don't cut yourself. Now, you can cut yourself. If this sharp bit, for example, if I didn't notice it and I ran my hand over it very heavily, it'll cut through the glove and potentially cut through my finger. Now, if that happens, you need to stop what you're doing. You need to take your gloves off and you need to go and wash all the grout out of the cut. You do not want any cement stuck in a cut for any length of time. Cement is very bad for your skin. And then get a fresh pair of gloves and then you can continue on. So let's get started. So we want to pick up some grout in our hand and slap it on anywhere. Doesn't actually matter where you start because we're going to be covering the whole thing. So we're going to be pushing it in. You can see I'm pressing that in. See if I can do it from a different angle so you can see it as well. So I'm pressing it in to all of the gaps. And you're thinking, oh no, my mosaic's all dirty. It's supposed to be for the moment. And you can see how little grout I actually have to use. Now, the bigger the gaps between the tiles, the more grout you're going to use because there's more area to fill. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so then I'm going to just scrape all the excess off, like so. And now I'm going to just flip him around. And I'm going to do the same thing to his beautiful little white face, which isn't very white right now. And his beak. Now you're rubbing it, I'm rubbing it this way and that way and this way and that way. I'm not just pushing in one direction. We want to try and force the grout to go into all of those spaces. Okay, so it doesn't look like much at the moment, I know, just be patient. Okay, now make sure you scrape all of that excess grout off. And make sure you unbury any details. If you've got different height mosaics, you want to get in there. A paddle pop stick isn't a bad thing to use for this. And just get all that extra grout off. Okay. Now, before we move on to the side, I'm going to get you to get your sponge. You need to dip it in the water. You want to squeeze it out so that there's no water that's too wet still. I'll just bring my bucket under here so you can see. You want to squeeze it out so there's absolutely no water running out of that. Now the reason for that is that we don't want the runny water to take the grout out from the cracks that we've just put in, but we do want it to clean the surface. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to give it a good wipe. And what that's doing is it's taking all of that excess grout off the surface. Now at this point I'm not trying to clean it, I'm just, that's fine. We just don't want any big lumps of grout there. Now the other thing it's done, and I'll bring it a little bit closer, is it will settle the grout into the cracks. So if I have missed anything, and if there is an air bubble under the grout, it'll settle it in. Which in that case, you can just grab some more, and anything that you see that isn't great or isn't done properly, you can just go over it again. You do that as many times as you like until you're satisfied that it is finished. So there are no bits where the grout hasn't gone in. All right, now you'll see there's a black hue over that. That is fine. We are not trying to get rid of that. Okay, that's fine. That'll come off later. Don't worry about it yet. So now we need to grout the side here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be filling in these gaps here. You can see these little gaps here. And we're going to use the grout to colour the edge of the board so it's the same colour as the grout. So when you hang it up, that isn't standing out like an eyesore. Now, the thing to be very, very, very careful of when you're using an MDF as a base, MDF does not like water. So as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're not sitting it in a puddle of water because the board starts to expand very quickly. So we want to be keeping the water, keeping an eye on it, making sure that it's relatively dry. So now let's do the edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up some grout on our finger like that, having it facing you. We're going to put it there like that. I've just scraped it off my finger like that. And then we're going to basically run it down the side like that. You see that? And it's filling in the gaps for me and it's staining that board. Now remember, we don't want to make this too wet. So if your hands are wet, get an old towel and wipe your hands a little. See, now I have to fill that gap there. Didn't quite get a little bit more grout. Want to run it over all of these edges. You can see what I'm doing there. You've got the same bird's eye view as me. We want to get into all of these ones. There we go. You can see what we're doing from the top. Okay. Want to get into here. Now, if you've got a difficult undercut that your finger can't get into, and I'm not sure that many of the shapes I've sent you in a kit has, but you may have your own, you can pull the glove like that and stretch it over there and you pull it backwards and forwards and you can get into gaps that you can't otherwise reach. So there we go. So now we've got to do the head. Let's just do the head there. So scrape it on the side and make sure we're filling in all those gaps. So I continue around. until we get back to the beginning. Now I'm not too fussed that I'm dirtying the front of this, by the way. I'm going to sponge it off again in a minute. Okay. Almost back to the beginning, a little bit more. And again, it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how many times you go around it. Okay, we can just check now what we've done and make sure I haven't missed anything. It's looking pretty good. Yep, that looks pretty good. I'm going to come back to the front, scrape all that excess off that's now there because of what I just did. And then we're going to flip it over and make sure there's no big chunky bits of grout on the back, so that it'll sit flat when you hang it. Now, if you want to, get a very, very dry sponge, and you can get the grout colour to cover the back as well. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be hanging it up anyway. But, you know, if you like it to look a bit more finished and less messy on the back. So over we go. And then we're going to wipe it over with the sponge one more time. Just give it a rinse. It doesn't matter if the water's turned black. It doesn't matter at all. Okay, give it a last wipe. There we go. Now it's a matter of patience. Now you have to wait. So at the moment you can see that black hue that's left is a bit glossy. It's wet and glossy. We need to wait for it to dry. It'll only take about 10 minutes. In the meantime, you need to go and get that rag that I said you needed earlier. Just any rag, it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as you don't want to keep it. You are going to end up probably throwing it away. All right, so let's stop and wait for our 10 minutes. Okay, so that's our about 10, 15, 20 minutes. Preferably don't leave this to do to the next day. We don't want that residue over the surface there to set on top of there. It's best to do any adjustments to grout on the day that you're actually applying the grout. Reason being that grout sets by chemical process and it hardens over time, which means that anything you don't get off now, by tomorrow will have set rock solid. So 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, but come back to it and let's finish cleaning it up. So if you've taken your gloves off, remember to put them back on. So what we need to do, if you have a look at this now, that has gone dull. That residue's all dry and dull. If you want to test it, just rub it a little bit. There you go. You can see that it's coming off. All right, so now you want to get your rag. The rag doesn't have to be anything special. I like to recycle my old threadbare towels and tea towels and anything like that aren't good enough to donate to charity. Make really good rags for this. Butter chucks, anything like that will do the job. So what you want to do is you want to give it a really good polish now. This isn't a delicate job. You want to put some elbow grease into it. So we're going to give it a really good rub. Really, really good rub. And you can start seeing, this is the big reveal. This is the best part ever of mosaicing, when you get that grout off there and you can finally see your mosaic come together. That grout makes all the difference. Now look at that. So he's all polished up. I'm happy with that. Just using the folded bit just to tidy up anything here, just running along those little lines just to help clear it out. Make sure there's no grout stuck anywhere. Just a quick rub down the side, give it clean, and by George, I think she's done it. If you have a piece that has a lot of different heights in it and the rag isn't doing the job, you can get a dustpan brush, and I'll show you, like this one, and you can get in there with it and give it a good clean like that, and that will get rid of anything as well. Give it a little bit of polish while you're at it. So there you have it. There's a little bit there that I might just pop off. Now, so there you have it. There you have your finished piece. Now, you may notice that somewhere on there you've missed cleaning up glue on the top, and what will happen is the grout will stain the glue and it'll look like a dirty patch and it'll be ugly. So what you can do with that, you can get a paddle pop stick or something similar and you push it like that, or your gloved thumbnail and push it like that. I don't really have any on here to show you, but push it off. And if it's on a glazed tile, that glue can't really stick, so it'll come off. But generally speaking, during the grouting process, if there's glue on the surface, it softens, the water softens the glue, so that's the best time to be cleaning it up. And you'll notice that the sponge on the other side has a rough surface. Don't scrub with it, we don't want to wreck the tiles, but if there is something that's being a little bit stubborn, you can give it a bit of a scrape and give it a clean, and you'll notice that that annoying little bit of glue is now gone. Okay, so there we have it. Look at that. I'm sure you must be delighted. Look at the difference the grout has made in pulling that little ducky together. You can really see the wing now. You can really see his head and his fancy little eyelash, and the beak stands out, but it's all pulled together and I'm really happy with it. And hopefully you're very happy with your very first mosaic. So while we're admiring our beautiful duck here, your beautiful mosaic, I need to tell you how to dispose of this. Now I've got plenty of grout left over. Being cement, you cannot throw this down any sink. It will sit in the S-bend and it will set. It dries by chemical process. It doesn't dry because the air has got to it. So it will sit in the S-bend and it will collect. And if you do it enough times, it'll block the S-bend. And the only way that you will be able to get rid of the blockage is to get a plumber and replace your plumbing. So please don't ever throw this down the sink. Likewise, you don't want to be throwing this stuff down the stormwater drain because it's going out to the oceans and you'll be potentially poisoning our wildlife, not to mention if, again, you might cause blockages, which then you'll be liable for repair. If you have a bin, you can just take this and throw it as it is in the bin. If you really want to keep the container, with your gloved hand, you can scrape out what's left, wrap it up in a newspaper, throw it in a bin. Unused grout always goes in the bin. Okay, so now what to do with leftover dry grout. If you do have any leftover dry grout, you can reseal the bag, make sure it's airtight, and you can keep that for next time. There's no reason to throw that out, it's really good. The rag you can probably just throw in the bin. Now here's this water, which is now pretty black. So it's black with grout. So again, you can't be throwing that down any drain. If you have a garden, you can throw the black grouty water onto your mulch or your grass. Doesn't seem to mind. Don't recommend you throw it onto any plants because the plants may be sensitive to the chemicals in the cement, so don't be doing that. If you don't have a garden as an option, you can let the water in this bucket, the grout will overnight will sink to the bottom, okay, and then that way you can tip the actual water down the drain, and then you can either throw the whole bucket out with the grout in the bottom away if you don't want to keep the container you use as a bucket, or if you're trying to keep your bucket, scoop it out with the gloved hand, put it in newspaper, put it in the bin. Now as for all of the tools and things that you've used, make sure you can give them a wash in the grouty water before you throw the water out. But again, if you've used black grout, it's gonna basically stain anything that's wooden or porous, so suggest you just put those items aside, so next time you're grouting you've got a kit for black grout. You would never use the same buckets and containers and stirrers for white grout. you'd have a separate kit for white grout. Okay, so let's move on to installation. Well done, you've made your mosaic, grouted it, it's ready to hang, ready to display, ready to show it off. So let's get on to installation. So there were two installations that we talked about before that I'd like to show you. So the first one is just using the string that came in the kit. So the most obvious way to do it is to locate that hole, assuming that you've left it open to do this. With the duck, I've covered mine up, but you can see this one here. You can pass one end of the string through. This isn't rocket science. Pull it through, and then you can do a knot at this end. So just over like that, pass the two around the back through the loop, and then pull it tight, which I'm not going to do because I want to show you another way to do it. The other option is to find the center of the string. You can then pass the center of the string through the little hole and then drag those two through the loop that's come through and give it a pull, and then it will tighten up like so, and then it's also ready to hang. So that's the easiest way. So then I mentioned earlier about using picture hangers to hang these guys up. So let's have a look at those. So Command or some other brand, it doesn't really matter what brand, anything you use is fine. What you're looking for is the weight here. Now this particular guy doesn't weigh much at all. So anything that says a kilo, under a kilo will be fine. I mean, these ones are saying sets of 4 hold 1.8 kilos. This one's going to be fine. There are instructions on the back, but essentially what you're doing is you're going to be taking one of these guys. You need a front piece and a back piece. Okay, so then you just need one for what we're doing. Just get this out of the way so you can see. You're going to be turning it over to the underside of your thing, and it usually tells you on there which side goes to the wall and which side goes to the piece. So basically they stick together like that. Can you hear that click together? And then they peel apart. Okay, so you're taking the backing off this one and sticking it to here, but make sure you're doing it where it's hidden. And then you're taking the backing off this one and sticking it to the wall where you want to hang it. Now pay attention to the angle that you're going to hang this. So these things have different weights in different places. So if you hold it like this, see, you can find out where the weight is. So if I put my hanger here, right, it's going to hang straight. If I decide to put the hanger here, if you hold it like this, you'll see what's going to happen. It's going to fall crooked. So make sure you find out for your particular mosaic where the weight is, and that you're centering the weight so that it sits straight on the wall or sits at the angle that you want it to sit. I mean, you might want it to sit that way. So in that case, put the hanger there. Here. So we'll put this one here, take this off, put it here, put this one on the wall, and then it will clip to the wall. And whenever you want to move it, you can just unclip it and take the other half off the wall. If you prefer to use this guy as a little cup holder or a trivet or something like that, you would get your adhesive felt. You can trace around this, cut your felt out, cut it a little bit smaller than the shape, so cut on the inside of the line, not the outside of the line, so that when you stick it to the back, it won't actually be hanging over the edge and then be visible from the front. The other option is you could put little feet on there that you could glue on there. You can find those at the hardware store. And there we have it, our beautiful finished mosaic, ready to hang. Well done, everyone. congratulations, you've done it. You've made your very first mosaic. Well done. I'm sure you enjoyed the creative journey, but there's a lot more to learn. Keep an eye on Creativity Wild. You can hop on my Facebook page and follow me. There'll be more classes about how to cut ceramic tiles more precisely into circles and squares and triangles, and how to use your grout lines as a part of your design. I'll be doing classes with other materials, so glass, stone, mixed media, and then you can go into dimensional mosaics. There'll be some classes around that as well. Along with all of that, there's always some kits that will come to you so that you have an easy learning experience. I've really enjoyed doing this class with you, so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me be the one to show you how to make your very first mosaic. I'll see you soon.